All right, joining me right now is XMMA Featherweight, Westin Wilson. Westin, thank you so much for the time today. How's fight week treating you?
Fight week's good, weight's good. Just ready to weigh in, ready to fight. Um, Put the night behind me and get ready for the next one.
Of course, man. For you, what is the rituals? Do you have rituals during fight week that you have to go through?
um, no, I work with one of my coaches, Steve Davini. He's also a wrestling mindset coach, and we try to stay away from like rituals and superstitions and things like that. Like, there are definitely things that we do, but we don't have to do them. So we're kind of like we experiment a lot with different things, and I've been pretty active this year. So we've experimented with different things like in the warm up, different things with the weight cutting. Well, not really the weight cutting. I've got that down, but the couple of times I haven't had a cut weight, and so that actually threw me off ritual wise, if you will, because I do enjoy the weight cut. For me, that takes the nerves away from the fight because you just focus on making weight. So the times where this year I haven't cut any weight, I had a little bit more nerves leading up to weigh-ins, and then after weigh-ins I was fine because I didn't have to cut weight. So I was kind of nervous about that. Um, so yeah, I try not to have like too many rituals, but I definitely like to like work out with the team every night and work a sweat in. I do mitts with Coach T and Wonder Boy and I talk about fight day and things like that. So I definitely like have like things I like to do, but I wouldn't say I have like a set ritual of like I have to do this, I have to eat this right after weigh-ins, I have to do that right, before the fight. I have to wear a certain pair of compression shorts, none of that.
No, like secret like dances or nothing like that, right? So it's all good,
Yeah,
right?
no, like I know fighters in the UFC that I won't name names, but I had like rituals like with candles and seances, like weird stuff like that, like that they'd have to do fight day before they went to the venue. Like, yeah, it's weird. There's people who have those like sort of rituals that they have to do and superstitions, and they believe if they don't do them, they'll lose. And I just I just don't believe in that.
Yeah.
I think it all just comes up here, what you're willing to do up here.
Definitely, man. It's to each is their own, man. They gotta do what they gotta do. Now, for
Yeah.
yourself, you say you have a conversation with Wonder Boy. What have those conversations sounded like?
Yeah, it's been fun this past year because Weidman comes in, Wonderboy comes in, and it's funny. Weidman, I feel like every camp, like we fight like a week apart from each other. So he comes down and does a lot of his camp with us, and we'll do ice baths together, and just getting to talk to him, pick his brain about like his process, seeing that he gets nervous going into fights. Wonder Boy gets nervous going into fights, like, and be able to talk about that and be like, oh wow, I'm not the only one who gets nervous. Like, that allows me to actually be less nervous and be like, okay, everybody gets nervous, like who cares? And kind of control that, and giving me techniques on how to control that and how to get focused in and not to worry about, I hate the first minute, 2 minutes of every fight. Like, I hate the first 2 minutes. But like Wonder Boy telling me like, oh dude, everybody hates first 2 minutes. Like, you just gotta like move around and do this and do that and breathe and focus on your breathing, and then you start implementing your game plan after that. So like there's things like that I've learned from discussing with that, with Wonder Boy, with Weidman. We have Ryan Hall come in, Chase Hooper, and being able to talk to all these guys that are there at the top level and seeing, I guess if you will, their fight day nerves, like how they deal with it. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, you kind of learn. Chase Hooper told me before he walks out, he's like, well, it's only 15 minutes. I can do anything for 15 minutes. So like that attitude and things like that. Like, it's pretty good to kind of see everybody's different take and to realize like I'm not this wimp because I get super nervous or super anxious.
Yeah, you got the coolest characters surrounding you, man. There's those names that you pull off, man. Those are guys are just got good reputations in the sport and great to have around you. Now, for yourself, this year, man, you've been extremely busy compared to 99% of fighters in the world. You have so many fights this year. How have you been getting these matchups?
So as soon as COVID hit, I was like, all right. See, so outside of fighting, I work as a product manager at a software company. So part of my job is dealing with strategy and like, okay, how is this current environment gonna impact business? So I sat there and I was like, how is this current environment going to impact, fighting? And I saw it as like the biggest opportunity for me and certain type of fighters who might not have gotten opportunities, based on records or whatever. I found it as an opportunity of, hey, you know what? I could build myself. Well, all these top prospects are on the sidelines, not fighting. I can build myself and be right there and make a big name for myself. So I was like, what I'm going to do is I got to get leverage. I got to figure out a way. So I started my own company called Combat Cast. And I just started like hitting up all these promoters like, hey, I know that you're working at 50% capacity. And I know that all the live streaming companies on the market right now charge 50% of ticket revenues. I'll do it for free or I'll do it for 10% or whatever, for cheaper costs. Allow you to make more money, allow me to fight and travel and go wherever and get these fights. And so I've been booked every month since November of last year, pretty much. I got a concussion in November, and then that event ended up getting canceled. But I fought January. I was booked to fight in February, but the kid didn't want to make weight. I was going to fight Drew Fickett in March. Drew Fickett ended up not getting medically cleared like a week before the fight, so that sucked. Then April I fought, May I fought, June I made weight. I was at the event. We were the next fight to walk, and my opponent sprained his ankle on the way to the cage, which I feel like was just a cop out. So I didn't get a fight June 4th. Wow. Then I got this July 30th, and I'm going to be fighting again August 28th. So I'm trying to stay as busy as possible, just keep knocking them out, limit how many times I cut down to 45 so that I can stay healthy. And the way that Coach T's got me, Coach Thompson, Wonderboy's dad, has got me training, we're not taking a ton of damage in the gym. We're just honing our skills and just sharpening our skills to where I could fight every weekend if I had to.
Man, those fights, man, you've done pretty well for yourself this year. You're 2-1 and 2 finishes. But those fights, man, where you're like about to step in, even a week out, it still could mess with you mentally, right? Somewhat.
Yeah. My mindset with Coach Thompson, because before that, like my job moved me out here to South Carolina. Before that, I was in California. I was training with Tyler Wombles, who was in the corner of TJ's last fight, Raymond Daniels, Jiva Santana. So all really big names in their respective sports. And so I was going to like all these different gyms and had like all these different coaches just surrounded around me, which was a great experience. I learned a lot in different individual areas, but now I'm able to hone that all in one place. And Coach T's really like changed my mindset on a lot of things. We re-examined a few of my losses, and it all came down to I didn't get beat by my opponent. I beat myself mentally. So we were able to really hone in on like mental weaknesses I had going into fights. And realizing like, hey, you're an exceptional fighter. When these guys come here, like Ryan Hall, Chase Hooper, Anthony Smith, Chris Weidman, like all these big name guys in the UFC, they come in and they all do rounds with me, and all of them are like, dude, how are you not there yet? Like you beat me up in sparring, or So I'm able to hang with all these guys, and it's given me a lot of confidence. But then Coach T was just like, look, it's one of two things. You either don't trust in your technique or you don't trust in your cardio. He said, but if you know that you have good technique and you know that you have good cardio, you got nothing to fear in there. So all of a sudden I was like, and so we've just been like, all right, let's just fight back to back to back to back to back to back. Let's get rid of any fear of getting in there and fighting, any nerves, and being able to conquer it. And so I think staying super active for me has been beneficial. And yeah, I kind of laid a goose egg in my last fight. Because I had a little bit of mental errors, and we addressed that. We found where the chink in the armor was mentally. We also underestimated. He was quite a bit bigger. We didn't realize he was going to be that big at 155. And so that did. I was walking really light that whole camp, like 161, 162, fighting at 55. This kid is at least 185, so he was pretty heavy. But, like I said, I just mentally froze in that one, but not this one. This one, we were ready to go.
All right, let's talk about this guy you got up, that's set up to fight you. at XMMA 2. Brandon Bushaw, man, what do you know about him, and what does he bring to the table?
You know, we watched a lot of footage on my last opponent, and we're like, okay, he likes to do this, he likes to do that, and we kind of like developed this whole game plan of like, he's gonna shoot on you, he's gonna do this. And I think that got into my head a little bit. I was like, okay, we know that he's gonna do this, so I just got to watch out for this. So then I froze, and I didn't really do what I wanted to do. So we haven't watched any footage on this guy. I've seen like clips here and there. Um, I just know that he's a brawler and a purple belt on the ground, which doesn't really mean much to me. Um, and probably gonna try to wrestle me, but that doesn't mean he's got anything I haven't seen. Like on the feet, there's nothing that I can't do on the feet that he can do. Or sorry, there's nothing that he can do on the feet that I can't do and counter and beat relentlessly. So I'm not afraid of anything he's got. I'm not afraid of his, like, there's no size advantage for him. There's no weight advantage. There's no reach advantage. There's no speed advantage. There might be some strength advantage, but I don't see it. Like I'm working out with some of the my strength and conditioning coach, same guy that gets Wonder Boy ready for fights, and Wonder Boy's strong as all get out in his fights. So I've got no reason to not be confident in there. But I don't know. I haven't watched anything. I assume that he's going to come in real loopy and try to take me down. Like that's what everybody tries to do to me. And you just stop 1-2 of his shots and he won't take any more. So that's kind of the game plan. It's just, okay, no, he's going to try to take me down like everybody does. Instead of like going in and playing the ground game like I like to do sometimes, this time it's, hey, we're just going to punish him on the feet. This is a big crowd. People like knockouts. There's a lot of eyes, a lot of higher up people in the sport watching, guys from Bellator, guys from UFC are going to be watching this card. Knock him out, make a name for myself. I mean, as cool as submissions are, guys aren't getting signed off submissions. Guys are getting signed off for knockouts.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And fortunately, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, people paid like that carnal instinct is still like the big fan base. I will say back out east in Asia, you guys appreciate the ground more. You guys appreciate the art side of it. Unfortunately, Western fans just like the blood and guts and the barroom brawl type fights. They don't appreciate those like masterpiece performances where you see somebody just in that flow state, just hitting clean, flawless technique, whether it be jiu-jitsu, whether it be wrestling, whether it be, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, whatever martial art. And when they blend it all together, that's appreciated back east. Out west, not so much. And those Western promotions like the UFC, Bellator, PFL, they want the excitement. They're paying fighters to get those type of finishes.
For sure. Now, with Bushaw, you mentioned that he has this brawler attribute, and do you feel like this is going to be the death of him in this matchup? Like he's going to run into something that's going to be, like you said, a knockout, something that's going to be devastating.
In his 10 MMA fights, pro fights, he's only been knocked out once. And it was in a fourth round, which, you can chalk that up to fatigue. But he also hasn't fought anyone as good as me. He hasn't fought anyone with the striking accolades and the people I train with, So there's nothing that this kid has for me that I'm going to be like, he might hit hard a couple times, but that fades after 3-4 minutes. Once that adrenaline starts pumping, guys don't carry that strength for that long. And you've got to hit me first. And in my last several fights, outside of my last fight, I've probably only been hit like once, maybe twice in my last like 4 or 5 fights. The one in August, I didn't get hit. January, didn't get hit. April, I got hit maybe twice. And that was just like crappy ground and pound. And then even in May, like it was ground and pound and it was heavy, but I wasn't hit clean on the feet. So yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for him to hit me. And I think people get like fearful when you can't that was like my biggest fear, was being in a cage with somebody and not being able to hit them and them just hitting you like constantly. That was a big fear. I was able to face that fear when I started training with Raymond Daniels. He was by far the hardest person to ever hit in sparring. And I felt like every time I threw a punch, I'd get hit with three, you know, just like pop, pop, pop. So I was able to overcome that fear through, you know, having to spar a guy like Raymond Daniels. And then when you finally hit a guy like Raymond Daniels, like, oh crap, I just hit like one of the most elusive guys. Then when you're constantly training with Wonder Boy, who is also one of the most elusive guys, you're just, and when you can start landing shots, you're like, oh, okay, like I got tricks. I got things that I can land on a regular basis. And Wonder Boy's really good because he'll give you a really good, honest look for your opponent and stuff like that. There's really, when he and I spar, we have no ego. It's just like it's like a playing in a lab, you know. We're just mixing chemicals. Like, hey, what happens if I mix this with that, and what happens when I do this and that, you know? And it's so much fun. And I've been able to like learn a ton over the last 18 months training with him.
You also said you have a fight lined up for the end of August, and the plan is to just continue fighting. Do you see yourself maybe like just sliding in, you know, because you do have a pretty decent record combined the last couple of years, to kind of just go into the Contender Series if there's a spot?
Yeah, I mean the goal is, and the goal always has been, I want to build my record up enough to where I can short notice in the UFC, especially on a card where Wonder Boy's on it, you know. So let's say Wonder Boy's fights in November. Well, I want to get like, okay, if I win these next two, that puts me at 5-1 in my last six. I think that's good enough with all knockout finishes, like or stoppages. That should be good enough to like, hey, we got a short notice fight at 55 or 45. Let's just slide them in. You know, Wonder Boy's already going to be out there. So I'm hoping, you know, I get like a Chris Montino or whatever, like his name, situation, like with an O'Malley or somebody that nobody wants to fight, you know, and I can just be able to slide in there and take that fight, and win, lose, or draw, I'll just put up such a great performance that, you know, my legacy's planted and I can just build from there.
Exactly, man. And nowadays you don't need to be on this long winning streak anymore. You need to just have a decent record, a good record. Now, you know, we were off air talking about this, but you mentioned you visit India every year or once a year. I was just wondering about that, man. Like, what's the story?
Yeah, so I have a development team out in India with my job, and I work for probably one of the best companies a fighter could work for. They support me, they sponsor me, even though it has no ROI for them. And so yeah, I'm a senior product manager for a software company, and you know, they let me train when I need to train, as long as my work is done, doesn't interfere with work. But it's pretty relaxed. And then I go out to India once a year, and we always do like my boss and the CEO. We always do like a 3-day layover before we go to India. And so one year we did Korea. I went and trained it with. I didn't get to train with Zombie, but I trained at that gym with a few of the fighters there, and that was a really good experience. So like with my job, I always try, no matter what country I'm at, I always try to like get a couple sessions in with like the fight culture there. And so when I was in India last time, I did a seminar out there just for free, and it was awesome. Like they love MMA. It's becoming a big scene out there. They just don't have the high level coaching to get them to the next level, you know. I've always said, if there was a really good like MMA coach who wanted to move out to India, they could make pretty good money, because there's a ton of people there, a ton of people wanting to learn, and there's a ton of talent, you know, that could be cultivated in India. And so so I keep in touch with a lot of those guys. They always hit me up asking for like technique or break down their fight footage and stuff like that. So it's fun. And then I got to do like Dutch kickboxing in Holland for one of my layovers, train in Thailand. That took a vacation after India to Thailand. So I love it. That's one thing I love, because I started out in Brazil as a kid. My dad moved us to Brazil for his job, and I couldn't wrestle anymore. So that's when I got into MMA when I was 16. And I learned so much, like just about culture, and I didn't speak Portuguese very well, but like the fight language was a universal language. So I understood everything that these guys were telling me, even though I didn't understand them. Like you still had that connection. Even in Korea, like I didn't speak Korean at all. And the guy that I was training with, who was like Zombie's like main training partner, um, he didn't speak very much English, but we were able to kind of understand each other as we're doing rounds and sparring. And, when we got to the ground, like I was able to show him a couple things, and he was able to show me a couple things like on the feet. And it was really cool, like a really great experience where you got two guys who are from different parts of the world who understand each other fully without any like common thread except for violence and fighting. And through that common thread of violence and fighting, like you get this brotherhood that's super strong, super quickly, and I still follow the guy I train with in Korea on Instagram and stuff like that. And so it's cool to see him fight. It's cool to see, some of these other people fight, even though I don't really know them super well, but I know them through, the dedication it takes to get in the ring.
It's such a small world because I was in India a couple years back for SFL Super Fight League, and I went to a couple shows out there, and it's the people are so nice, man. It's a whole
Yeah.
nother culture and a whole nother like environment, but when you get there, you start to appreciate things that you have where you live more
Oh, for sure.
by
For
being
sure.
in India. That's a place where you go, and I would like everybody to visit India at least one time in their life. I always recommend it to people because I never thought I would go to India ever, but I did go, and it was a
Which
trip to
part did you go
remember.
to?
I went to Mumbai.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. We always go to Pune, which is just outside of Mumbai.
Mhm.
Um, and then we will sometimes fly into Mumbai, but yeah, I don't love the food. My stomach just doesn't
Mhm.
handle the food very well. But you have this appreciation for like how hardworking they are, and
Yeah.
they don't have a lot,
Mhm.
but they're willing to, do whatever they can for you as well.
Yeah.
Um, like in the middle of my seminar, my stomach just started hurting so bad, and the guy that I was with, he was like, "Oh, let me," and I had just met him, like I had just met him, and he's like, "I got this gym, I got this thing, I just met this guy," and we still talk every like month. We'll send a message to each other, just checking in, and he was like, "Oh, here, let my wife will take." She'll go out and get you some medicine real quick in the middle of the seminar, and you know, and I was like, well, here's a couple bucks, let me pay for it. And they're like, no, we got it, like, and I was like, come on, man, like, I'm making American money, you're making India money, like,
Mhm.
I can cover whatever cost the medicine is, and they wouldn't let me pay, man. They wouldn't let me pay for the taxi, nothing, like, and I was like, dude, I'm on company dime here, I
Mhm.
can cover my cost, but no, they wouldn't do it. They covered everything, and it was really nice.
Yeah, man, hell of an experience myself too. Anyways, July 30th, man, coming up. You're back in action,
Yep.
just down the road, basically, right? So,
Yeah, this would be like the first time. Well, I fought in April. Like I took that fight on like a 5-day notice up in Spartanburg. But yeah, most like August last year was in Evanston, Wyoming. Then we were in May. We were in Utah. We've been going to Knoxville a lot for Valor, which is a great promotion. I now live stream all their shows. Um, and really, I mean, for any of these fighters out there, like as a fighter, you are not owned by any promotion. You are not an employee. So think about that. You are a contractor. You have to have leverage to get the contract that you want in fighting. So as long as you can provide that leverage, whether it's I can sell a ton of tickets and make you a ton of money, I can provide a service that you don't have. I can do all this other stuff. That is what promotions want. They want these smart businessmen. So fighters need to start being more business minded. I hate when I see this in social media where it's like some regional fighter puts like works for LFA or works for Bellator. Like, no, you don't.
mm,
You don't. You do not work for him. You work for yourself and you contract through those promotions. So that is my word of advice to these young fighters. Like, be more business minded. Treat yourself as a business and not an employee.